Hey everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show. My name is Tom Marks, assistant editor here at PC Gamer. With me, as usual, is James Davenport, associate editor. How you doing, James?
I'm doing so good. You
Yeah?
want to know why? Well, you'll see in a second.
And also with us, not on the future screen this time, is actual living Evan Lottie.
Hey.
Hey, Evan.
It's me.
He's back.
It's my first day at PC Gamer. So
I'm your new boss.
be nice. I've never podcasted before. I'll mention real quick. For those of you who don't know, I worked at PC Gamer for 7 years, and then I went to work at Amazon for a little bit. Decided to come back, which is great. I'm really super elated to be here, and it's my first day back in the office, and we happen to be doing a live stream show
Yeah.
on that day, so why not sit down?
It's very convenient. It's great that you were on the show twice already since coming back, but in Skype form, and it's always better to have you in the room with us, as you'll see soon, sweating in this room with us as it gets warmer.
I have a question. How did you get out of the computer from last week?
You know, it turns out if you got a big enough DVI cable, you can kind of just crawl down that. I don't know if you've seen Mission Impossible where they're crawling in the vents. It's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I just imagine
That's
you.
what the dual link means.
I just imagined you in like a James and the Giant Peach sort of situation, like crawling out of a monitor. Like
I'd watch
slowly
that.
turning from claymation to real life.
I would watch that.
Yeah, I would too, I think. But we've got a great show for you today. We've got a lot to talk about, so we'll jump right past the silly stuff. I'm going to be gushing about Stardew Valley. Let me rephrase that. I'm really excited about that game. So we're going to be
Total universal praise about that game.
Yeah.
So many people want to play a Harvest Moon type thing, apparently.
Yeah.
And you're one of them.
Yeah, I am definitely one of them. We're also going to be talking about a great piece Evan wrote for the site last week about criticizing betas and early access games and kind of how just because something has the beta label doesn't mean that it is immune to being criticized in a way that some people think it is. We'll also be talking about Far Cry Primal, which just came out on PC at the end of yesterday. It didn't unlock until like late last night,
Really?
I think. Yeah. But we'll be talking about that. I guess it technically unlocked midnight tonight in the Eastern time, and so it was,
Eastern time.
Just came out, but James has been playing the console version.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Forgive me.
Don't.
Forgive
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Don't feel bad.
Okay.
And then lastly, and I'm very excited about this, we will be unboxing our HTC Vive Pre, which arrived literally 20 minutes ago.
Great timing.
Yeah.
Let's pop that baby open.
And that'll be pretty fun. So we haven't opened the box beyond just the cardboard, and so we'll all get a chance to see what the Vive Pre kind of looks like together. So that's good. But let's start out first with what we've been playing lately. So James, what have you been playing? What's in
I'll
your
get to
library?
mostly Far Cry Primal. I've been playing a lot of console games, guys. But the other game I'm playing has been Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2. I'm still like chipping away at all three of these simultaneously, kind of in anticipation of the game I'm looking forward to most this year, which is Dark Souls 3. We also had some good coverage of that go up this morning. We have a video preview. We have some unedited footage. We have a written preview. So go check it out.
And what was, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Like, what is the big takeaway about Dark Souls 3? I haven't been following it that closely because I'm not a big fan of the series, but like, what are the number one or two things people should know about that game?
That's why I've been playing these games again, because I'm curious, and I think everyone's curious how you can. The game's built on mystique, and that by making sequels, they inherently become less mysterious. And so everyone kind of wants to know what about Dark Souls 3 is going to be the mystery and the secret unraveling and sort of the forbidden knowledge, so to speak, of these games. Dark Souls 3 so far, it's hard to say. It looks very, very nice. It's an engine upgrade. It looks more akin to artistically and graphically like Bloodborne. A lot of kind of gothic villages, and you see a lot of kind of stereotypes in that regard. You see like these village people with pitchforks, and they're worshiping a dead tree, and some good classic Dark Souls storytelling in that regard. As far as combat, you have battle arts, I think, which is kind of a flourish you can do specific to each weapon, which is like one of them is, I think the sword will do a crazy uppercut. It drains this blue meter, a new blue meter. Hooray, a new meter, guys. Got a new meter. One of them, like the knife or something, will it will help position you to get a backstab. So kind of some interesting combat additions. And beyond that, I think a lot of people are interested in the narrative. I don't want to say too much about it, but there are some familiar faces, some familiar locales. Some of the items directly reference the other games. So this could be, and Miyazaki has gone on record as saying this is a thematic finish to this trilogy. So I think everyone's hoping to see it kind of go off the rails and be as Dark Souls as it can be by the end. So you ask me, what are the main things to know? It's prettier, combat's quicker, and
Darker?
Darker.
It's more soulful?
Soulful. It just looks like a Dark Souls game, for better or for worse. And
I was noticing in Sean Prescott, our Australian editor's preview video of it, that it looks like enemies show up in groups way more now.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And that probably didn't stand out as much to me because I played through Bloodborne. But yeah, the grouping of the enemies is different, and the combat's quicker, more variable to kind of make up for that, which I'm into. You still have to commit to the buttons you press and commit to the moves you make, but it's quicker to accommodate for, like, instead of 2 undead skeletons coming at you, you have like 5 villagers and 2 dogs and maybe a giant dude who's holding a saw the size of your torso, so it's chaotic, great. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm still a little, I don't know, I think I can't chase that same high anymore, so I think we're all the same boat in that regard.
Taking some of the now playings from chat, I saw a lot of spam of super and hot in all caps. Have any of you guys been playing Super Hot?
Not yet.
I played a pre-release version of it, maybe in like September last year or something, and it had a lot of the story content that I really enjoyed. I think if you're totally unfamiliar with Super Hot's story, it has a really compelling premise, almost along the lines of The Matrix or something like that, where I don't want to reveal anything. I mean, it's not really twist-oriented necessarily, but it's compelling. So yeah, I think it's sort of been marketed and written about as a like time attack almost game, sort of like an arcade experience that's attached from story. But I think the storytelling is actually one of the more compelling aspects of that game. So even more reason to jump in.
That's interesting to hear you say, because like all I know of the story of the game is super and hot in all caps and bold being shown and screamed at me on the screen from trailers.
It's funny because, I mean, last week we were talking about Devil Daggers along the lines of like a cursed game. Yeah. It has this sort of feel where like you could almost see it like being a cursed fictional arcade cabinet in some TV show or movie or something like that. And Super Hot actually has that kind of premise to it, which is fascinating, where you're sort of playing this thing, but something bad is happening as you're playing. You don't really quite know what.
Yeah, and I mean, I've checked some of the communities, and people are just diving deep into this stuff. So I'm certainly excited to see how far it goes.
And it's so pretty.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Oh man, it's pretty. It's funny, even just looking at like the free prototype version that came out a long time ago, that was kind of the thing that made Super Hot become a full game. It's amazing how much better they made the game look since then.
Yeah.
And obviously that comes with having an actual release and being a full game now, but it's really impressive what they did to an already nice looking game.
Yeah, and they're going to keep updating it. Since we got our Vive today, it's worth noting they said they're bringing VR support to that game. Yeah. So that'd be a pretty cool game to play in VR.
Be insane.
I had a chance to play it on Oculus actually last year, and the unique thing about it is it has, at least then, I don't know if this is still the plan, it had like exclusive lean functionality that actually affected gameplay. So you could lean around bullets, so it really became even more of a Matrix simulator, because you can't do that. You can move, you can WASD, but you can't physically lean the camera out. So yeah.
Well, Evan, what have you been playing lately?
I just moved to San Francisco, so I sort of missed this weekend of playing stuff. But I continue to play Rainbow Six. I'm going to pass the 200-hour mark pretty soon here. Damn. And I just think it's a wonderfully balanced game in terms of the urgency you feel and the time that you have. It's so unique as a shooter in terms of the freedom and the space that it gives you to plan. I mean, James, you've played plenty of it.
Yeah.
You feel like, I mean, really the first thing you do as an attacker, it's an attack and defense style game. It's 5-on-5. You send your drones in, you find out where the objective is, like a hostage or a bomb that you have to deal with. And from there, like, the round is focused on one room, kind of. I mean, people spread out, people lurk. That happens. You have to manage the map as a whole. But one of its biggest achievements is it makes fighting in a single room interesting. I mean, there's no other game that's done that, I think, in terms of multiplayer. It's so focused, but because of the destruction mechanics, because of the way things counter each other, you have a character has like there's grenade launchers that like pop grenades into a room suddenly, but there's like a grenade defense device that can also be disabled with EMP. So these things kind of like rock, paper, scissors one another in an interesting way. But, the rounds are still like 3 or 4 minutes long, including the scouting phase. So you feel a lot of urgency. You have to get stuff done. You have to get in position. You have to get there. But you're not so hurried that you can't like sort of take a moment and be like, okay, so if that guy is laying prone in that corner, and if I like throw a flash grenade here, or if I bring my drone in here, I'll be able to spot him for my teammate. You can execute that kind of stuff, right? And I think that's just super masterful. I've been really enjoying that that balance of, it plays super well in a casual context. I can jump in, I can play a couple rounds. Counter-Strike has that, but you really have to like be clutching your mouse hard in Counter-Strike, I feel like, at any moment, because it's such a game about motor skills. Like if you're not hitting people, if your aim isn't right, if you're not feeling the recoil of a weapon on a given night, like you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And Rainbow Six like is super forgiving, like for better or for worse. I mean, if you're a hardcore Counter-Strike player, you're going to lament the fact that when you're side strafing, you barely lose any aim. You can just kind of move and shoot at will and be as accurate. But I don't know. I love that game. It's the best shooter of last year for sure.
Well, so I'm curious, how did the DLC or the update, I can't remember, Black Ice, was that the name of it? How did that go to like shifting up the meta and that sort of stuff? Like, did it do an okay job now that it's been settled after, a month?
Yeah, it's been about a month. You're right to bring that up. It had a good effect. So I think the biggest impact is that it added a character named Frost. It added 2 characters. Frost has had the biggest impact. Frost has these bear trap sort of doormats that she lays down. And they're really, really good anti-window entry defense. Because say you're rappelling on a window, it's hard to look down inside of a room from the outside of a wall to see what's sitting at the bottom of that window. In order to do that, you have to basically stand in the windowsill, and then you're framing yourself to get killed. That type of defense, like a ground-based defense that could be laid anywhere and incapacitates or kills people, didn't exist in the game. So it's had a great effect in the meta because it's disabled or like made more difficult certain entries. People have to think twice between coming in certain windows that previously were very powerful. And it's really fun. She has a super powerful shotgun right now that a lot of people lament. It's like really fast firing, great range. The map that they added, I think, is one of the most interesting in the game. It's a yacht. It's like this yacht that's been sort of frozen in an iceberg, and it's disabled, and it's really long and complicated. So it's hard to like wind your way through. You're kind of checking behind you to make sure people aren't hiding in little engine rooms and compartments. So it's had a good effect, but again, I think this is the only content we're getting until April. Maybe even a little bit later. I can't remember. So there are going to be like I think 3 more releases through the season pass that are scheduled for this year, and that's great. In the meantime, they have done a lot of work to... Ubisoft has supported this game fabulously in terms of patches. I mean, they just released yesterday a big patch that addressed a lot of the spawn placement. There's an issue in the game right now. I think it's fun strategically, but like basically the defenders, they can like punch a window from their defense area and like look out into a spawn point and like basically spawn snipe you. And it works really well in some situations because by punching a window, you're immediately sort of like sending the signal to people on the outside, like shoot right here. It's creating immediate targets. So you are very vulnerable. Yeah. But particularly skilled players could just like know exactly where people are going to spawn and kind of spam that spot.
Yeah.
Somebody told me an anecdote just in the office where players could like run out on the yacht boat deck, and because they knew where a team spawned, they could throw C4 and they killed everybody on a team like right at the beginning of a round, which I think a behavior that they want to discourage. So they've addressed some of that stuff. They added like a kill cam to the ranked system to sort of help people deal with the perception of cheaters, which I think was really smart.
Yeah.
So they continue to be really focused on the game. I know a lot of people have concerns about Ubisoft, and there are some matchmaking issues here and there on PC. They've gotten a lot better, but I think by far and large they've really committed to this game, which has been impressive. That's what they said they were going to do. They said, they ran an alpha and a beta. I'm going to continue playing this game as long as they continue to treat it well.
It's interesting too, just to touch on this briefly, that I feel like people have sort of started getting. People aren't used to watching communities and games grow anymore, I feel like. Because you look at something like, you now have all these milestones of you have CSGO and you have League of Legends. So every time a new MOBA or competitive shooter is released, you say, oh, this game's community is tiny compared to League of Legends or CSGO. Like, it's dead. And everyone just says, oh, the game's dead now. Nobody plays it anymore. And it's true that compared to these established games, nobody's really playing these other games, or not many people when you're comparing it to millions of people. But it's easy to forget that games like League of Legends started incredibly small when they now rule the world. And it's the same thing with like something like Rainbow Six. I look at it and I go, when this game came out, I was like the community doesn't seem to be there yet. And I was very quickly judging it like, man, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of people playing this. But it's also a game that since it's come out has grown and continues to grow. And it's encouraging to see that for a game that's people are enjoying that much.
I think it's had a lot of loyalty. The Rainbow Six subreddit, which is a pretty good venue for discussion, I see a lot of people just being like, this game needs more attention. It needs there's just a lot of loyalty there from the hardcore players like me, I guess. And I think it's in its top 30 on Steam in terms of concurrent players, top 20 maybe at any given moment, and that's enough. Yeah. I mean, that's as much as stuff like Terraria, perhaps. So
so I have been playing what our next topic is, and I've been playing Stardew Valley.
Yeah,
and I am pretty much in love with this game right now. For those of you who don't know, I'll pull up a trailer for the benefit.
Speaking of Terraria.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of Terraria. I'll pull up a trailer for the benefit of our YouTube and Twitch viewers. Basically, it's Harvest Moon, if you know the Harvest Moon games from, NES, Game Boy, or Super Nintendo, Game Boy, N64, that sort of stuff. With a little bit of Terraria in there, where it's got crafting and it's got monster fighting and it's got skills that you level up, which is not like Terraria, but you're advancing your equipment and that sort of stuff. But then it's also got this sort of like Animal Crossing-ish vibe where you can customize your house and you can customize your farm and you can pick up and place furniture and get new furniture, and then you can pet a goat, yes. Go to people in town and like build relationships with people and actually marry like NPCs in the game. There's 5 bachelors and 5 bachelorettes, and you can marry any one of them. Also nicely, no matter what gender you are, and then you can have kids with those NPCs, and it's just this huge, sprawling game, and I'm obsessed with it. I played 15 hours in the first 2 days that I had it. I just was like blown away by how much I wanted to keep playing, because the saves, this is a little annoying, but it only saves at the end of each day. So once you've ended a day, you've gone to sleep, the game saves. And so it's that Civ kind of mentality of one more turn. It's always just like, oh, but my melons just finished growing, and I want to go bring those melons and sell them, and then but then you don't get the money till the end of the day when you sell a crop. So then you're like, oh, but I want to take this money and I want to go ahead my high on this like apple tree that I wanted to plant, and then you go like buy that apple tree, and it just keeps going and going, and it's oh my god fun.
So I've heard a lot of people say with Stardew Valley, it improves on a lot of the issues people have with a game like Harvest Moon. What would you say are like the big differences that it brings to this genre, this rural farm management genre, I guess.
So it's been a while since I played Harvest Moon, but I guess the main thing that I like about it is that it really feels like you can play it how you want to. Like, it feels like if you just want to only be farming, you can just only farm. If you want to only be fishing, you can only fish. If you want to only be in the mines killing things, you can do that.
So it's not a scenario where, like, 50 hours in, everybody's place kind of looks the same.
Yeah,
right?
no, like, and also it goes with the relationships too. If you want to just completely ignore the relationships until you have like this mega farm, you could do that, and then after you've like played maybe 3 years in the game and have an incredible farm, you could just go, oh, I want to get married now, and then start the relationships like storylines that other people started day one of the game. It lets you play completely at your own pace.
So with Stardew, what is the state of the game right now? What do you say are like? Because I asked you earlier, like, is this game eventually going to have co-op?
Yes.
Because like I would love to play this kind of thing with my girlfriend
Yes.
or somebody else to kind of manage a farm together or something. Would be really fun.
Yeah, so this is actually, I think this is the thing that made me want to talk about this game on the show today more than anything else. Because, like, you know, we play a lot of games that we really enjoy and get crazy about, and then we don't come and devote segments to them on the PC Gamer Show. But the reason this is, I wanted to really, was it's being developed by a guy named Concerned Ape is his username. Eric Baroni is his real name. And it is only him. He did all of the art, all of the code, all of the music, all of the sound effects, everything. And then Chucklefish, which is the developers of Starbound, stepped in to publish the game with him and kind of give him maybe some guidance here and there as a publisher might, but like it is his game, 100%. And the thing that's incredible, like that's on its own is really impressive.
Yeah.
He released the game on Friday morning, and by Friday night there was a patch. I'm not like, and it gets crazier. He patched the game on Friday night and fixed some things, fixed bugs, fixed things, made a couple changes off of suggestions from people on the subreddit that day. Then the next morning, Saturday morning, he patched the game again. And then in the patch notes, there's a thing that says update. I added a couple more things. And then also, so he patched the game like a second time during that patch. Then that night, he patched the game again. And then later, and that one also was like people were complaining about the diagonal movement in the game being too slow, which it was. And he's just like, okay. And he just fixed it. Like, and he's constantly on the subreddit just talking to the community, being like, yeah, that's a good idea for our next content update. And he's like not going to sell stuff as DLC. He's just going to update the game. So multiplayer was part of that. When he first announced the game, it was going to be a 4-player co-op farm game where you all are working on the same farm together, and you can like everything's still there. The marriage and the like relationships and the mines and everything like that is still in the game, but just you're playing with 3 other people. And that's going to come along with more content to the game in the similar way that Terraria has done. And it's just a matter of when he does it, because he's shown very clearly that he is not slowing down on developing this game that he's been developing alone for 4 years.
Man, I was going to say, I mean, there's a real danger of over-promising that situation when
Yeah.
you're managing in what seems like the total entirety of a project yourself, maybe aside from some publishing duties that Chucklefish is handling for him. But it seems like he's handling it so far. I mean,
It's incredible.
wow.
It's
Terrific.
just really impressive.
So I'm really interested in hearing about the constraints that this game puts on you. Like, it's tempting for me to think, because I don't play a lot of these kind of games, and like there aren't a lot of these kind of games to play to begin with, that it's just about accumulation. That's just about, okay, I get a horse, and then I'll have 10 horses, and then I have like corn, and then I have more corn, then I have apple trees, and like I want to know about like, how does the game undermine you, like keep your progress in check? Like what challenges does it put in front of you other than just growing shit continually? Or is it not about, or is it just about watching numbers go up, if I'm being really cynical, Tom?
I'm trying to think, and like the challenge is kind of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like it is, I guess the challenge of the game is more than anything time management and resource management. It's you're always going to have not enough money, like, or you're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough energy in the game because you have an energy bar, and every time you do an action, your energy bar goes down, and then you can make food and you can learn new cooking recipes to craft food that will get your energy up higher. But only once you've upgraded your house to have the kitchen, because then you can cook. Unless you get gifted food, I'll stop. But and then also it's time in the day, because like I said, there's a day-night cycle to the game, and once 2 a.m. hits, you fall asleep passed out wherever you're standing, and you wake up the next morning, you actually miss a day. the doctor sends you a note and it's like, I found you passed out in the road and I took you home, and then you've like lost an entire day of work, and you wake up 2 days later. And then also the later you go to bed, the less energy you have the next day. So the game's challenge is all in like, how much can I get done in this very, very short amount of time? And then what do I prioritize for tomorrow? Can I stay in the mines just like a little bit longer and then hopefully make it home? And if I don't make it home, then my next day is screwed, right?
Sounds like real life, Tom.
Yeah, I got to make hay while the sun shines, right?
Yeah. That's the challenge of the game, is just time and resource management. It's do you have enough money to do this? And if you spend this much money, you get this much money in return, and that sort of stuff. Like, it's compelling. It is, because it's also, the game allows you, like I said, to go at your own pace. So like, you never feel like you have enough time to do anything in a day, and you always feel like you're not gonna like miss out. Really, the big like missing out markers are like seasons, because the way the game works is there are 28 days in a season. So it's like, in my game, I'm on the 15th of summer, right? And basically it's just a month is a season. And then it just loops and it goes forever. So if you missed something that's only available in spring, which is totally possible, and I definitely did, I have to wait until I get back to spring in order to get that thing. And to give you an idea, I've played for 15 hours and I'm a season and a half through the game. So to get through an entire year of the game will probably take me about 40 to 50 hours of gameplay.
Yep.
And there are things I cannot do until the next year of gameplay.
Yeah. Just like Animal Crossing. I know a lot of people would like change their GameCube internal clocks, and then like the game would catch you or something, right?
Yeah,
that was
get
pretty
chewed
cool.
out.
So tell me more about this dungeon stuff. I mean, I'm guessing
That's what has me curious.
I'm guessing it's not like Diablo, where eventually you fight Satan himself with.
I wish.
I don't know. I have a quest to get to the bottom of the
4
mines.
years
Who
in,
knows what's there?
With your sword made of corn and
No, the fighting is pretty simplistic. Like I mean to say, I'm being incredibly positive about the game, but it's not going to be appeal to everyone. Like, it just simply isn't. And the combat is something that if you're like going into this expecting an RPG or Terraria style combat, you're gonna be disappointed. It's very simple. It's basically, you have a sword and you click to swing and you start like. You go through levels of the mine, and I think each level is procedurally generated. And then every 5 floors, you unlock like an elevator that lets you jump to that floor instantly. So if you make it 5 floors in a day, you basically haven't wasted your day in the mines. And then if you don't make it, if you only make it 4 floors, and then you have to go home, next time you go in the mines, you have to do those 4 floors again. So I'm on like level 55 in the mines right now, and they're not very hard, right? Like, it's easy to get killed, or it's easy to take a lot of damage, but as long as you bring food, you're kind of going to be okay. And there's not much complexity to the combat. It's like swing your sword, hit the things, don't get hit.
it's like old Zelda style kind of.
Kinda, yeah. I would say it's probably not quite as satisfying as old Zelda style, because like the enemies are a little bit like damage spongy.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that good kind of like thwack, they're dead. It's kind of like you corner a helpless slime into like the wall and like keep hitting them until it like dies.
Well, imagine it. I mean, you're using some of the same resources, mechanics to like gather and manipulate like static crops and stuff. So it probably has some commonalities with that. Like,
yeah, there's and the mines are not just for combat, right? Like that. There's copper and iron and minerals that you have to collect to upgrade other things and build and craft other items.
that's still combat. You're just fighting the earth, Tom.
I suppose. Hackett33 in the chat actually says, wait till the lower levels. So maybe there's stuff that I just haven't seen.
Mephisto?
Yeah.
all the brothers? They're all here.
But
They want to join your farm.
the thing that I will say kind of negatively about the game, and I think that the developer knows everything I'm about to say already, because he's already addressed a lot of these issues in the subreddit. If anybody's interested, it's just reddit.com/r/Stardew Valley. And it's like, the controls in the game feel like it was made by one person who didn't have many beta testers. It really does. Because originally, he already changed this, but originally auto run wasn't automatically on. You had to hold shift to run, and your walking speed is like horrifically slow. So like there was no reason to not put auto run on, which is in the menu. And then there's also this thing where originally you can't see exactly where you're going to hit unless you turn on the tooltip thing in the menu to show you exactly where you're going to hit. So when I first played the game, I was like, these controls are garbage. Like, they're terrible. And when I turned on that tooltip thing, I realized why it was is because the way the controls work is if your mouse is outside of the... It's all grid-based, right? So if your mouse is away from the adjacent 8 squares around you, then when you click, you action in front of you. So if you're watering and you click far away from your character, you'll water the square directly in front of you, and that's it. But if it's within the 8 squares around you, then you do exactly one of those squares. But that's really kind of contradictory to how you play games like that, where like you're kind of just thinking, okay, if my mouse is in the top left corner of the screen, I'm going to do the top left square around my character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that hurts in particular, I'm sure, because it is a game naturally where you're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again in precision. Like you're planning in a specific pattern or whatever. You want like 10 pumpkins and 5 acorns or whatever. And it's a grinding style of game ultimately, and you need that kind of fundamentally great feeling of the controls, right?
Yeah, and it was a similar thing with the walking speed. The diagonal walking speed was way too slow because the way he did it was basically like if you were moving right at speed 1 or up at speed 1, then when you're moving diagonally, you're moving right at 0.5 and up at 0.5. So you're moving the same distant thing, but it like just feels really crappy.
I mean, honestly though, isn't that realistic? I mean, when I'm not walking perfectly north, south, east, or west, I'm always like a little bit slower. That's how it works for me.
Hey, that's a fair point. But that's one of the things he's already changed, right? He's already updated the walking speed because he's really listening to the community. I don't know. Basically, it's like $15 on Steam. I'll post our review in the chat as well. It's just a really fun game. And the other thing is there hasn't been a game on PC that's just like, hey, I'm going to make Harvest Moon but modern, like ever, I don't think. And it's great. It's really, really lives up to that.
It just seems like something, I mean, I'm looking forward to checking out a little bit more. It's definitely not my style of game, but there's so much conversation around short games and like, oh, should I pay like 30 or 20 bucks for a game like Firewatch or The Witness? Like, oh, it's only like 10 hours or 5 hours or 20 hours or whatever. And this is one of the answers to those people that are like, I want to pay like ultimately a penny an hour for a thing that I dump like 200 hours into. So, I mean, it's great that we have access to, I think, a spectrum of those different types of experiences on PC.
Yeah, I think we also have a couple people from Chucklefish in the chat right now.
Ooh, hello.
So hello if you are watching.
If you need a shining endorsement, Tom, though, no, I'm serious. Like, I would typically make fun of you for playing Stardew Valley, and I made fun of my friend for saying I should try it out, who's visiting. But
you're from farming country.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm not interested in it, because
you're from Montana.
I grew up plowing those fields and pig slop, whatever they do. But
I don't think there's pig slop in the game yet. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, they're in the chat. Get some pig slop in there. But I played a good hour or so of this, and I got interested in the loop, and it was just intrinsically satisfying to clean up the garden and to plot out where I'm going to put my parsnips. And my friend was getting real excited. He was just perusing the town. Who's gonna marry us? He was like jacked about the dating scene in this little town. So I think there's something for everyone in there in some regard.
Yeah, that's actually how they get you, right? Is the cleaning your farm, right? Because you start out and your farm is just a mess. It's full of
Sucks.
and this is going to sound really tedious at first, but it's like there's grass things that you have to scythe away. There's rocks that you have to pickaxe away. There's like logs and sticks that you have to axe away, and there's trees that you have to axe down. And then as you have to just kind of clear space. Like I haven't cleaned out over half my farm yet, but that's how the game gets you. Is just like it's like here, just clean a few rocks up, and then you like start doing it, and then like it's 8 hours later, and you don't know what happened, and you're like are selling parsnips at cost, and you don't know what's going on, like injecting Stardew Valley directly into your veins, man. It's so good.
It is funny to think about. There's going to be kids. I was one of these kids who like you're playing something, you're just like something like Fallout. I remember playing at this age, and your parents are like, go mow the lawn, do your chores. There's going to be some kid like manicuring his amazing digital farm, and his parents are like, go mow a fucking actual farm. You know? Like the grass is terrible, and take care of our land.
Yeah, K9Net says Tom is really selling this game. I apologize if I'm like gushing, but it's just genuine. Like I'm really excited about playing this game. Like I'm gonna go home and play it more because I'm excited. And like I said earlier, it is not a game that's gonna appeal to everyone. Like it just won't. But I think the great thing about Steam's refund policy is that like I think it's the type of game that if within 2 hours you'll understand if you want to keep playing it or not. So like if you're at all curious about it, like it's probably worth just trying, you know? Because that's the nice thing about the refund policy is that you can do that now, which is great. If you don't like this game, great, just refund it, you know?
We really need to have we need to revisit that topic.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it now because we have a full show ahead of us, but like the ethics of Steam refunds, I think it's really worth talking about right now. It's gotten interesting. Anyway.
All right, let's move on.
Let's do it.
Because I've basically just like Kriegasmed about Stardew Valley for the last 15 minutes.
It's getting hot in here.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's move on to a topic that Evan brought up on the site the other week about criticizing betas. And the actual title of your article, which I'll now post in the chat as well, is Betas and Early Access Games Aren't Immune to Criticism. What do you mean by that, Evan? What's the deal, man?
Well, I don't know. It came about, it was prompted by a few things, but really we published this story about the Hitman beta. And the headline was, and people thought this was like a little too cute, which I can understand, but I thought it was like very descriptive of our feelings and our sentiment around the Hitman beta, which ran a little more than 2 weeks in advance of its release date next week, I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But our headline for that was, the Hitman beta was too much of a beta. In other words, it was like surprisingly unfinished or buggy, not interesting in some cases. So we had some like really strong criticism for the Hitman beta. And what we heard to an extent on Twitter, on article comments elsewhere, was like, it's a beta. Like just a lot of that sentiment with the implication being, it's not finished, so don't criticize it. And I'm just like, I sort of got sick of hearing that. And that sounds sort of mean and sort of condescending to our readers. And that's like not what I'm going for at all. But I've just heard that a lot over the past year or two. It occurred to me, like, whether it's while I'm just playing a beta and somebody in text chat or like public voice chat is like, oh man, I really don't like feature X, or they need to really work on this. And someone just immediately jumps in with, it's an alpha, or it's an early access, you know? And I think that's total baloney and produces nothing, contributes nothing to the conversation. Like you're shutting down criticism in a case where the person running that beta, the studio running that beta, alpha, early access, whatever it is, I got to imagine they're interested in that criticism, that feedback in some way. Mm-hmm. And by shutting it down, like not only are you just saying like, I don't want to have an interesting conversation about this game, I don't want to engage with the criticism, but you're saying like, you're like standing in the way of a developer hearing something potentially that could potentially help that game. So I don't know, but more broadly, we can talk about this. I think it taps into a larger issue where the term beta and alpha, early access, they've kind of lost a lot of their meaning. Mm-hmm. They were already subjective labels, but I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Well, beta, to quickly define what these things actually were supposed to mean, beta is like feature complete, right?
Sure.
Technically,
feature complete. It's just kind of like looking for bugs. And
the assets are done.
Assets are done.
You're not. A lot of developers refer to this as like white boxing. Like an alpha might be a white boxed, version of a game, a build of a game that the art assets aren't complete. You have a lot of placeholdery stuff. But in a beta, things are supposed to be, by most people's definition, ready to go in that way. You're just sort of checking on bugs. But again, we've seen over the past years, really, honestly, the lifespan of game development, but especially now, the term beta is just used for so many different purposes, including, but not limited to, promotion. Betas are now this sort of identifier for getting people in. I think the Hitman beta was the case in part. I'm sure they were testing some stuff legitimately.
For sure.
but it's a marketing promotion to say like, hey, do you want beta access? In other words, exclusive access, whether how big this is or not, into our game before it's available. Do you want to try it out? I mean, demos are so infrequent these days, right? And I think it's because we've seen the rise of this term beta. It's much more successful, seemingly, and appealing to people.
Yeah, I mean, the Division, obviously they have a lot of things to test out with their beta, and online functionality, potential hackers and cheaters, and all that stuff is necessary to test out. But a lot of the marketing around the beta was definitely not like, hey, come help us out. It was instead, get access to the beta. It was like bundled with a Humble Bundle.
Yeah.
And
I feel like if you're advertising your beta, it's like not really a beta anymore. Like if you're inviting people to be like, hey, come try this beta, and like taking out banner ads for the beta, like at that point, it's not really like the point, like to bug test only.
And there's an intrigue to that too, like a social intrigue. Like, did you get in on the beta, or like seeing Twitter or Reddit light up with comments and conversations and so on? And I think there's this, it's fun to be part of that conversation when it happens. But what does it mean now? I don't know. Like, especially with the advent of early access and services like that, games just seem to be in continual development, and that's kind of what we're going to see moving forward.
But to revisit this notion of criticizing betas, I think when someone says it's a beta, so like in other words, like dampen your criticism or be silent altogether, like don't say anything. It completely ignores the reality in which games are released and played today, and has been the case for easily 5 years, where we're seeing games released in all kinds of states, like for better and worse. Street Fighter, a skeleton of a game. You earn in-game currency in Street Fighter right now that you cannot spend. You cannot use it to like buy costumes and stuff.
Savings bond.
Hitman's going to release at a $15 price point, I guess. No, is that right? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
It's releasing.
There's like there's a very like an intro bit for 15.
Episodic format, and like there are a lot of benefits to that, like more flexibility. Like digital distribution has allowed this stuff, right? For better and worse. People can rush stuff out the door and update it later on. Street Fighter again has had some server issues, but like episodic games, like what Telltale's doing, they can try that out. And instead of spending 3 years or 2 years solid and then releasing a bunch of, a single piece of The Walking Dead or something, people can kind of play it and talk about it over time. That's like a different, interesting experience.
Yeah.
It also allows for stuff like early access, great games like Darkest Dungeon, where people put out a great concept and they need that feedback. They need open development. They need community-centric development with sort of the label of like, hey, it's a beta, like as an invitation to like help participate if you're passionate about the style of game. So what I'm saying is like, I think overall we and developers totally benefit from the greater flexibility. Like if we were still in a period somehow where everything had to be a released product in a box or something, and you could only update twice a year, not at all, or whatever, like games would completely suffer. We'd have less interesting games, less like experiments and attempts at stuff. But just this notion that betas can't be criticized or betas like shouldn't be criticized. I think if anything, you should criticize betas more. Yeah. Because it's a period where you can actually maybe influence. There's a higher percentage chance, I think, higher possibility you'll be able to influence development and help make something better. Now, the other side of this, of course, is it's studios and publishers. Some folks are using betas essentially to get free QA, free quality assurance on their games, and free marketing. It's a way to sort of spread the word about something's out there. This is something that publishers paid a lot of money for, and a lot of them still do, to sort of test games in advance. They have entire divisions and teams in there. But it's really useful to be able to bring in 10,000, 100,000 people to see what bugs exist. So I don't know. There's kind of two sides of that. I think a certain amount of people would say, well, whatever. Like, I'm passionate about a game like Darkest Dungeon, or I'm passionate about a game like Battlefield. I love Battlefield. I would love to jump in there and help a studio that I care about, help like have my voice heard, even if it's like a little bit quietly and part of like a larger message within a community. But there's plenty of people I imagine that are like, well, why are you making me pay $25 to play a game and like that's unfinished for a year and a half? I mean, the truth is like it's so hard to have a uniform opinion that sort of applies to all use cases for something like this, because the uses are so varied. I mean, one developer's, I think I say this in the article basically, one developer is like pre-alpha, is another developer's final beta. It's very subjective. I mean, we talked about the definition of these terms, but ultimately these are subjective terms. They're not objective. There's no like gaming committee that is decreed like an alpha is this and a beta is that, and an early access game can only be these three things. Like, people are using them for all kinds of shit, and that's great because all kinds of shit comes out and gets in our hands. We get to mess around with it and play with it, and people get to have different ideas and different, develop stuff in different economic situations from different countries, whatever.
Well, Wikipedia would disagree with you on the no hard definition thing there. Okay.
Oh, great, Wikipedia.
But I agree, because it is a big perception issue, and people are using it in different ways, because we talked about this briefly before the show started, and I want to bring it back up. Jeff Kaplan, the game director of Overwatch, and I apologize because people were playing a drinking game last week about how many times we said Overwatch in the stream.
Overwatch.
Okay, calm down. You're killing people.
I'll drink to that.
You're murdering people.
He is.
But you guys, so he said in his latest community update video, where it's just this, basically he was talking about ranked matchmaking in Overwatch the entire time. But he mentioned that there was such a negative feedback and negative reaction to the beta because everybody thought that it was just this marketing thing, even though something like less than 1% of the people that were in were streamers. But, everybody just saw the streamers streaming, and so they rioted because they thought it was just this marketing beta. And he said in this video, if he wasn't sure if they did it again, knowing now what happened, if he would have just called it an alpha. Because there were a lot of features missing, and they did not intend it to be this finished thing that was just used for marketing. They intended it to test features and test servers and test balance and that sort of stuff. And he said if he had to do it again, he might have just not even called it an Overwatch beta. He might have called it the Overwatch closed alpha, and that would have fixed things.
That's a perfect example of developers using the connotation of those terms. I don't even necessarily disagree with it. They have their purpose for what this build should serve, whether it's back-end testing, feedback, like design, implementation, marketing, whatever like combination of those things. That's really fascinating, that like, not to insulate it from criticism, but to sort of like frame it differently. He's saying that like, I would have labeled it this way instead.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting conversation to have, the whole thing. And I think the big takeaway for me from your article, at least, which I'll post again, is not talking about stuff doesn't help anyone in basically any case. Yeah. Like, just communication with or without the developers, just communication between people of like discussing, I liked this, I didn't like this was kind of weird, it is only helpful in almost every situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly give like nebulous or unconstructive feedback, but good developers know how to filter that stuff out, just like us. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of, not proponent, but like, I'm against the notion of don't read the comments. I think that's bullshit. I think, especially in media, or really, I mean, any sort of creative profession, you have to listen to feedback. You have to know how people are reacting to stuff. It's a different and equally important skill entirely to be able to filter that stuff out and say, okay, like, that criticism's fair. That one, that's like way out of line.
You're ugly, James.
This, this person's having a bad day or whatever. Yeah. Like, you have to develop that skill, I think, as a developer as well. You can't just ignore stuff, develop stuff in a vacuum, and pretend that it's going to be okay and fool yourself.
There's a reason I have an eye on Twitch chat right now.
There you go, Tom.
Yeah, unruly lot.
Thanks.
But let's jump ahead to Far Cry Primal, which is not a game in beta. And no. James, you've been playing it before it came out, even though it's not in beta.
I know.
Oh, ho, ho.
I know. Well, okay, yeah.
So obviously you haven't had much, you haven't had much, if any, experience with the PC version of the game.
No, I've not played the PC version.
But real quickly, before we discuss Primal as what you enjoyed with the game, I do want to discuss kind of the PC port quality right now. There were a lot of reports. I personally haven't played it on PC, but I did my research before the show, and there were a lot of reports before the game came out about kind of like really kind of inconsistent frame rates and some problems with the port here and there, not like catastrophically, but like people were saying it wasn't running great. And then there was a day one patch that hit today, and it came out, and it apparently since that patch has been running much, much better. The stats I looked up was somebody was saying that with a 980, a GTX 980 on ultra settings, they were getting between like 45 to 60 frames the entire time, which is maybe lower than it should be, but also like not terrible.
You're on ultra.
Yeah. And then also the guy, there was a YouTuber named Idiotech. He then turned it down to very high, which only changed like the shader qualities and the lighting qualities, and you basically couldn't see much of a difference, and it like jumped 15 to 20 frames higher. So like I think overall the port quality is not bad. Maybe not stellar because it is a port at the end of the day, but like it runs okay on PC. But I'm curious, what do you think gameplay wise? How are you enjoying it so far? You said you've been playing it a good amount.
Yeah, I'm near the end, and by end I mean I've done nearly all the. I mean, it follows the same formula overall as the last two Far Cry games, where there are outposts. There's a giant open map. There are bonfires, things to climb, to unearth.
It is a Ubisoft game.
It is a Ubisoft game, which is probably the biggest criticism against it, is that everything you do in the game, despite its prehistoric setting, is ultimately very cookie cutter. It's that you're doing story missions occasionally where these nicely animated people will talk directly into your face. They get right up in it. And you go about reclaiming, just basically wiping clean the map. You're giving it a nice polish and making all the icons go away, which it's satisfying to do that. It's kind of the kind of game where I can just wander around, do an outpost. The stealth mechanics are relatively similar to the other games, where you're crouching and you're chaining together backstabs, and the core components are all there. I think the prehistoric stuff, the setting doesn't quite go as far as it should or could. It's really, really cool to see all of these interesting animals in the world, and I feel like they turned the dial up on animals per square foot. Because you'll
mammoths per meter.
Yeah, yeah.
They just turned every bullet that would be processed in the game into like a mammoth.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Flip the switch on that.
Yeah.
But everywhere you go, there's something fighting something. Whether it's, I think the best scene for me was you can tame animals in this game, and at this point, I had tamed a cave bear, which is a grizzly bear essentially. It's a big ass bear. And me and my bear buddy were wandering the countryside. I don't even remember what we were doing. I think I wanted to find a woolly rhino. So we found some woolly rhinos. It's a rhino with hair. And I sent my bear. I said, go attack the rhino. And then I lit one of my spears on fire, which you can do. You can light all of your weapons on fire, which is neat. Threw it at the woolly rhino. It caught on fire. My bear caught on fire. The rhino got away and started running around, and it lit all the trees and grass and everything else it touched on fire. So it's just this big hellish firescape in front of me. My bear is whining, the woolly rhino is crying, and then there's this part where he rears back the rhino, and my bear is about 30 yards away, and they just like charge each other and meet. And then there's this animation they like lock into, this tackle, and it was this really epic, really cool thing. Meanwhile, some enemy patrols wandering by, and they're like freaking out because there's fire everywhere, and they see like woolly rhino and my bear, and they're shooting arrows and all sorts of things. I'm sneaking up behind them, dodging the fire. So there's like all these really cool moments that occur based on like the sandbox elements, you know, the animal behaviors and the fire and just everything butting heads. And that's really cool and a lot of fun and my favorite part about the game. But ultimately, it's still a Far Cry.
So what about traversal? I'm guessing you're just mounting animals and riding them around?
Wait, real quick. I just want to address that. It's incredible to me. Like, my brain can't even process the fact that you just told me about a story about like a flaming bear burning down a forest and then like wrestling a rhino, and then you were like, it's okay. Well, like to me, that thing would be like 10 out of 10, done. I'm sold.
But like the 7th time it happens, I mean,
that's exactly right.
So.
There, sometimes like the elements mix and it's this perfect formula. Like that was the perfect potion for what I was looking for. Is a piece like that, but when you get attacked by like a saber-toothed tiger or a lion or a bear every 50 yards, the threat goes away of being like this kind of defenseless, primitive human, and you start to feel you get these upgrades. You feel really powerful, and like survival is not a thing. It doesn't matter. The environment becomes much less threatening than it initially is. Night is this huge thing they like build up in the beginning where there's more animals out, and the wolves, their eyes glow in the dark, and it feels really dangerous. But the animals, their AI has a fight or flight mentality, so it's like hit them once, they'll take off. Or if you have an animal you've tamed, they're scared of, they just won't bother you.
That's a problem I've actually seen in a lot of games, a lot of survival games, where they'll like build up how scary night is at first, and then as you get more confident in your game, you're just like, oh, night's not bad at all.
Just crank up the gamma. I mean,
but like the only game I can think of that didn't do that was like Don't Starve, right? Where Don't Starve was like if you go at night, you're just dead. Like you will just die. It's not like it's just black and white there.
All right, so riddle me this, James.
Yes.
I'm willing to put up with a Far Cry game being a Far Cry game.
Yeah.
That's fine. I can play one of those
Sure.
again. I'm super interested in the theme. Like, what I would want to walk away from this experience with is like a better sense of the era. Like, I would almost want to learn something about history. That sounds really bizarre, but like, I expect some amount of authenticity.
No. Oh no. That's the other part.
They worked with linguists to make a cool language or something.
That is it's the biggest foible of like the game for me is
Really?
they built the marketing was all about we had this linguist who studied early languages and to make this language for this game and they voice act in this language we can't understand. It's subtitled in kind of a caveman. You do this, I do this. Fire, good, speak, right? But beyond that, the performances, the mocap performances they might as well the gobbledygook they're saying might as well be stand-ins for like high school like drama class English essentially. It is because like. When you think of a primitive human, I don't expect them to gesticulate and perform in the same way like I would but still like they have the same cues as any dramatic or humor drama. Yeah, and it's just it feels so overwrought and pointless to have this to build on authenticity into the language, but then pull back and just fall into the comfort zone of the performances. There's even sorry, yeah.
You want those gestures to feel alien.
Yeah, right? And the world doesn't feel alien. It doesn't feel authentic. It feels like like just a silly fictional version of the Stone Age. And
Flintstones. Meet the Flintstones.
It might as well be the Flintstones.
Modern Stone Age family.
You gonna keep going?
From the
No.
Can you use any of the animals as like appliances? Is like a beaver a toaster? Secretly?
See, I was hoping that
it's a living. There you go.
You say that, but like I was wishing they would have leaned into one or other direction where it's a little bit more authentic at least, and like you get a sense of how hard it was to a hunt for a mammoth is like something you really have to spend some time thinking about and preparing for.
Shadow of the Colossus, or something.
Yeah, but really it's just like light it on fire, run away, light it on fire, run away.
As the old cavemen hunted.
Yeah, exactly. And or I wish they would have leaned into the goofy aspect of it, and like maybe you do have animals that serve specific purposes. You have an owl, which is like your binoculars. Basically, you can mark guys, and he can.
I'm just imagining someone holding up an owl, just like grabbing it and like shoving it in their face, and they just look through the owl somehow with its giant eyes.
That would have been more interesting to me, but
It's just the thing that popped into my head.
just chase it, man. Just follow it through.
Kind of abusive.
Love all owls, but like, it's it doesn't really quite find its footing in that regard, and I mean, there's a character who's a callback to other games, and he's just like he's wearing a leopard skin bandana, and he speaks in this cave talk in a Texan accent. And he's just like this comedic relief character, and it's like I can dig that, but against this backdrop of like, you know, early human and like the harshness of the weather and
it just seems like such an unnecessary choice to me to do this fake language. Like, I don't mean to rag on like one kind of probably minute aspect of the game, but like Assassin's Creed is in the Middle East and they speak in British accents, and then they bring it to Italy and they speak in fake Italian accents, and then they bring it to France and they speak in British accents, and then they bring it to England and they speak in British accents, and everyone's like, okay. But why do they bring a game, why does Ubisoft bring a game to Caveman Land and suddenly be like, no, British accents don't work here?
I mean, not to speculate, and I'm completely in the dark on this, so who knows, but it reeks like something that just got compromised.
Yeah.
They set out, I mean, imagine the first time this idea was presented in like a formal way, a design document or something equivalent. We're making a game set in the Stone Age. Whoa, awesome. Like, let's go crazy. Let's do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And they start to walk down some of those roads, and, you know, maybe certain designers or marketing or other departments are like, like, you can't quite go that far. Or in order to, like, compensate for how unfamiliar this is, like, it needs to be grounded, and it needs to be more like Far Cry. So it needs to have callbacks to previous games that, like, our big fans see those things. So it doesn't feel like it's just a Stone Age game that happens to be called Far Cry. Like, it's what happens, I think, especially in large studios. You know, you're making something for a big mass audience. It's hard to really get crazy and experiment. That doesn't happen that much unless you're Hideo Kojima or something.
Yeah, and it pulls off some of the ideas well enough. I don't mean to be too down on the game because overall I'm having a good time. I think if this was your first Far Cry game ever, or at least of the 3 and 4 formula, it would be pretty rad. It would be pretty cool. And ultimately, the weapons you have are limited to basically a spear, a club, and a bow. And a couple like bee bombs and stuff, but ultimately, if you have an entire settlement chasing you, you're limited, and that's like exciting. I just wish I was more limited. And you get to ride a saber-toothed tiger or a bear, which that's like I don't know, that's 10 out of 10 material for me. So
so overall, it sounds like you're enjoying it, but it's also a lot of nothing new, and
it's so easy if you've played the other Far Cry games to feel tired of it. It's also so easy to see the wasted potential and just the weird forks in decision making, and you know, the commitment to the setting. Overall, still fun. I mean, it's great.
We've got a review on the site right now, so
check it out.
Check that out.
Yes, but let's move on to kind of a weirder portion of our show right now. We're going to be doing a live unboxing of the HTC Vive Pre, which just got sent to us.
Yeah, we should probably move this.
So, I don't want to spill water. To our podcast listeners, we didn't plan this out very well because the Pre showed up literally a half hour before we started the stream. So we're going to try to whisk you away on wings of sound, as it were, and try to make this engaging for those listening as well.
Evan reaches over for the box. His muscles rippling.
The future is heavy.
So we have not opened this. We've just basically looked into it. For all of you, if you are listening on iTunes, you can always jump to youtube.com/PCGamer and look at the full video, or PCGamer.com/podcast, and you'll be able to watch it in our post there. Yes, do you see where it says Vive?
There's some
we
cardboard.
Can start pulling it out.
There's more cardboard.
Yes, there's lots of cardboard. That's what we know. Like I said, we haven't looked at this. You okay there, Evan? Oh.
The future is heavy.
The future is heavy. We haven't looked at this at all. So this is our journey with you guys. We're gonna see what we can find. There's lots of smaller cardboard boxes within the big cardboard box, all labeled Vive.
Good to know. It comes with speaker mounts,
Speaker wall and ceiling mounts.
presumably for the lighthouse components.
Yes, those are for the room tracking thing. So I'm gonna stand up and step away from the mic 1 sec to pick up this box.
Okay, so I pulled out a startup card that just has a URL on it. There's no cool IKEA style instructions seemingly for the Vive, but that's okay. I'm curious who got the headset itself. I think it might be me.
I think yeah.
Who's our winner?
And
All right,
as is PC Gamer law, if you
Got
touch
that.
it, it's yours. So
Oh.
I got the mounts. They're mine.
So we have what do we have? We have three of these mid-sized boxes, and then one smaller box, two of those mid-sized boxes, one smaller box, and then the mounting box, which is separate. $700 box, says subscriber ENA.
This is some good cardboard. I gotta say.
This is $700 worth of cardboard right
Yeah.
here. Once again, I believe this is the Vive Pre. This is not the Vive Consumer Edition. This is which is very similar to the Consumer Edition, but it's the one right before that.
What do we got?
Right before.
What do we got over here, Evan?
I don't know. Why don't you pull it out, James?
Oh,
I will.
Found it.
I'm scared to grab.
Grab the future by the harnesses.
So we have what looks to be the headset just in a plastic bag. Oh yeah.
Smells.
Oh, there it is.
Smells like.
Smell like the future?
Smells like a pool, a chlorine pool.
Yeah,
it's-
Tyler Wilde confirms that this is the Pre.
So it's packaged with what looks like the USB connector, HDMI connector. So this is probably what sits on your desktop and connects directly to the headset itself.
Yeah, how many cords are pulling out of this thing? Because there's a bundle, man. There's
We've got
a USB, an HDMI, and then
an
what looks
audio
like-
jack
Oh yes, I believe it's an audio jack.
for your
'Cause
headphones.
Yeah.
You can see those. I don't want to unravel those right now, but
James, you want to do us the honors and put it on your head?
sure. I got big ass glasses that never work with these, but
For those of you who didn't hear, the Vive Pre did get announced with its pricing and started taking pre-orders yesterday, or excuse me, the Vive Consumer Edition, and it's like $800, so it's a lot of money. We talked about that on the show a week or two ago.
It's even more if you're in Canada, which is sad.
Yes, it's the international prices are a little disappointing, but they were a little disappointing for the Rift as well.
I can see God.
Yeah, there you are, man. That's every time somebody puts on the Vive because of all the little dots around it. If anybody's seen the movie 1941,
Where's my mic?
Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi.
I got.
Careful. There's a scene in that where Dan Aykroyd puts this pair of pantyhose over his head, and he puts two oranges on his eyes in the pantyhose, and he just starts screaming, "I'm a bug!" And every time someone puts a Vive on, I just think of that moment.
It's dark in here.
What do you see? Describe the experience.
You know, I get it. I get it.
Putting on the unplugged in.
Talk about how heavy it feels right now.
That was the first thing I noticed actually was that I've had plenty of Oculus, like at least not consumer versions, but the latest development kits. You want to try that?
I'll take a go. Yeah.
You can wear it with glasses.
Have a gander. Mine are too fucking big.
There's a little slot in the foam, so you can actually put your glasses on while you're doing
But
it.
the Vive, I've worn one maybe once or twice. Granted, the wires are like hanging loose right now, or not attached to anything, so they add a little weight. But it's definitely noticeably heavier than the Oculus. And it's,
Oh yeah.
right? You feel that?
I would agree.
You can take the
It's-
weight off there, but still.
Yeah, it's fine. But it definitely feels like the heaviest pair of glasses you've ever worn. Wow.
So we've got.
Like I feel it kind of in my orbitals already a little bit, and then just below my eyes.
Maybe like with proper, if we secure it properly and so on.
Are you
it can
saying
take,
this is improper?
can take some strain off? But hey,
Something.
I mean, in spec-wise, it is like definitely just heavier. Like that's just the facts. Just the facts.
David Gurgis TV says, "Heavy is good, heavy is reliable."
I don't know
To
if
which
that's
Ultimate Purge responds,
adage.
"Not for your neck." I think both have their merits. I think too heavy. The interesting thing was this is the Oculus, but Palmer Luckey responded on Twitter the other day to people saying how the consumer version of the Oculus Rift was something like, I think it was like 60 grams heavier than the DK2. And his point was weight doesn't matter, where the weight is matters. So their point was that the actual headset of the CV1 was lighter than the DK2, but the head straps were heavier, so that the center of mass was more kind of in your head and not as on your front.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever tried carrying a friend who's passed out, it's the same principle.
This definitely feels front heavy though. I don't know, like, did it feel? It feels kind of like
I mean,
pressing down.
I would want to make some adjustments and actually be playing something before I make that kind of judgment. But yeah, it's noticeably weighty, not heavy, but the weight is there. You feel it. I don't know.
Here, put it up on the box.
Yeah, of course.
We have what looks to be like 12 feet of just an audio cable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of additional cables.
Oh, that's for the mic, because this has a mic. So that's what the audio jack in this was. There's a mic now on that, I believe.
think it plugs in right here, Tom. Yeah.
If anybody has questions or whatever, also let us know within the chat if you have questions about the Vive as we're unboxing it.
Where are we gonna put this, guys?
We got some more cables. We got USBs. We got more power cables. I'm just gonna put the power cables over here.
Cool.
I think that
Boring.
this box we need to actually open as well.
Oh shit! What's
Well, it must be the controllers in there, right?
light box and controllers?
Oh, yeah, we haven't even reached the touch controllers yet. I actually forgot that the touch controllers existed, so there you go.
Gotta say, in my experience with VR, the controllers make all the difference in the world, or at least depends on the experience. But in games that require use of digits, or at least simulated digits.
Here we go.
Yeah.
These are the two lighthouse sensors, I believe.
Yeah. So you place those in a room.
I'm gonna peel off the plastic real nicely now. This is amazing.
So new controllers.
Wait, let me get the audio experience of peeling off the plastic for our viewers.
to the camera, actually.
Yeah. Let's.
I mean, we won't be able to
Yeah.
hear you, but
I'll get up there. You guys can describe. I'll Vanna White this.
Okay. This is a clown show, and I love it, and I hope you guys are enjoying it.
tiny.
Yes, we're in like a 90-degree room, about 5 feet big, dealing with 4 boxes.
I mean, that's the optimal way to experience VR.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So James has got our controllers here. You can see there's a big, what looks like a dial on the front. You can sort of rotate left or right, almost like a volume control, and push in, it looks like.
Is that a dial? I thought it was the touchpad.
Oh no, it's like the Steam controller.
Okay, yeah, so it doesn't
Okay.
actually spin.
No.
It's like the
Okay.
touchpad on a Steam controller, basically.
Great. Yeah, I haven't played with these yet myself. So below you can see the trigger for your index finger, it looks like. So just like a shoulder button on a normal controller, it looks like. And what else we got on the side there? Okay. Sort of paddles for your other fingers.
Social Mechanic in the chat says, "When's the giveaway, guys?" Not anytime soon. Let's
Sorry.
put it that way.
We have to be able to write about this thing. We're
Yeah.
gonna be holding on to it. Sorry.
We're gonna be definitely bringing you guys some coverage of the Vive Pre. This is the Vive Pre once again, which we just got today and are just opening for the
And
first
James,
time.
does it take batteries or is there a charger port?
Can I see one?
Charging port right on the bottom.
Is that a micro USB?
Yeah, it looks like a
mini
micro USB.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so there's like, so this is how it can tell, like, you see videos of people like doing a thumbs up, and it's just because your thumb is on the pad, and it knows when your thumb is on the pad, and when you lift it, then it does the thumbs up. I was surprised to see that actually all the buttons and all the sensors are just on this hand part. I thought that the ring part had a little more to do with it.
That's very nice, James. You're a VR pirate.
And so then here you can show off the headset a little if you want as well. This is yeah.
I turned it on.
Oh, did you? That was the same startup noise as the Steam controller. Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Well,
So putting it on as well, it definitely feels heavier, but it also feels like I know it's not adjusted right. Like, I feel like when you strap it a little more high up on your head, it's going to be, like, a little more comfortable. But wearing that, I agree, wearing that compared to wearing the CV1 at PAX South, this feels significantly heavier. Not like uncomfortably heavier. Maybe significantly is the wrong word. Noticeably heavier is a better word.
Okay. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that look at the Vive. We'll keep it here in front of you to sort of glance at. I know it's a little bit out of our frame right now. Sorry about that.
We can grab a box and put it back up as James works his way back over here.
Yeah, but I guess it's that time in our show to answer questions of all varieties.
Yes. So if you have any questions about anything on your mind this week in PC gaming, let us know. Tag us with @PCGamer in the Twitch chat, and we will respond as we see fit. And if you are a subscriber to the Twitch channel, we will definitely be taking your questions, so please send them our way. If you have questions about the HTC Vive, about any of the games we talked about on today's show, about games we didn't talk about, please let us know. And of course, if you are watching on YouTube or listening on iTunes or the site, you're always welcome to join us live at twitch.tv/PCGamer on 1 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitch. So let us know what your questions are. I think this thing is cool. I was surprised with how many pieces there are, and I'm also going to be interested to contrast this for when we get the Rift in, because I as listeners know, I pre-ordered a Rift. So I'm going to be interested to try this and maybe use it for the next month or so at the office, and then have a Rift and see what the difference is. It's really exciting that we're finally getting to this point where we can have hands-on time where we're like spending time with one and then spending time with another, rather than these kind of brief little glimpses at trade shows and stuff.
Yep.
All right, we got some questions coming in. Twitch user GaySex, spelled hilariously, asks, seeing a game like Devil Daggers feature bunny hopping made me wonder if any of you have a favorite video game movement mechanic.
Oh, damn.
Wall running.
Ooh.
I'm going to say Jet Set Radio style wall running.
Is that wall skating?
Maybe. But Lucio is also one of my favorite characters in Overwatch because he's got a similar mechanic.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
I like wall running a lot. And hopping from wall to wall.
I mean, for me, it's the RJ. It's got to be the rocket jump, right?
That's a good one.
I mained soldier my first half of my TF2 career, and I just think it's such an interesting little and natural sort of cost benefit of I'm going to hurt myself a little bit to get up in the air, and just the experience, it challenges people to dare to shoot you. So it has that sort of interesting skeet shooting response for people who are on the ground, and should I waste like the couple shots in my magazine to try and knock you down? It's a skill shot, but should I try that? But skiing in tribes as well is just a fabulously fun, like your feet are basically bowling balls attached to your ankles, and the whole world is a giant half pipe. It doesn't get more fun than that.
Yeah.
Well, skating off of that, mine is probably the manuals between combos in either Tony Hawk or the Ollie Ollie games. I like how they're stylish. They add to your combo. They require quick input, and they're kind of a risk because you don't have. I mean, you're sacrificing speed. You have to balance them, and I just like. I have fond memories of those games, and the input required. Manuals are cool.
Yeah.
That was a good question. I like that one.
That's nice.
Me too.
Turtle Milk asks, on the topic of Stardew Valley, would you want to see more open-ended life simulator games like this? I grew up on Animal Crossing and have been dying for this sort of experience. I think yes and no. I'm sure that those experiences are out there on PC, but I definitely want to see more I think that I'd either want to see more or find the ones that I'm missing, because I'm sure they're out there and I just haven't seen them. But like when I played Stardew Valley, it felt like a very unique experience to have on the PC compared to like usually you get that sort of thing on Nintendo, and Animal Crossing is another one where I don't feel like there is a Animal Crossing equivalent on PC. And I'd like to see that thing explored more, at least by game developers, if not maybe like super prevalent.
I'm still surprised that there's no real popular Pokemon equivalent on PC.
Yeah.
What would that be? I mean, I know the Monster Hunter games are kind of playable, but those are quite different. They're more like third-person action games at this point, right? Even though they're about like hunting and collection in a way.
Yeah, there's games that use collection and that sort of stuff as mechanics, but there's like that is the point in Pokemon, right?
Yeah, and
that's true.
A stable of characters that you call upon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Jarwin asks, how sturdy did the Vive controllers feel? If I rage and throw, will they hold up to my anger?
Don't do that.
That is his answer.
I mean, they have wrist straps, Wii style. Remember that? All the broken TVs coming on
your local news station.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it feels pretty stable. It's a little bit like, it definitely doesn't feel like cheap plastic, which is great. Doesn't feel hollow necessarily. It certainly feels hollow up here in sort of the circular part of the wand. But I wouldn't want to throw it. I mean, I have a feeling like this, there's a seam right here in the plastic. I don't think you can necessarily see it on camera. But these seem to be two different pieces here, so I wouldn't want to snap that off. It seems like the bottom portion can take a beating. Like I wouldn't feel bad dropping this.
No.
20 stories, maybe not, but like from standing position, no problem.
All right, let's take some more. Scruffy Jojo asks, "What were you chaps drinking today?" I think water was all around.
Wink. Wink.
Don't you wink? Don't wink.
Just gotta keep.
Well, here's actually a question real quick from
hydrated.
myself. You said that this upper ring part feels hollow, and I know that under these little divots there are sensors, but probably besides those little light sensors for the lighthouse, there's not much in that ring.
Mm-hmm.
No. All the buttons are in the handle part.
It's an excellent ice cream holder as well. So if you want to put your ice cream cone in there and just kind of take a little lick every now and then.
Yeah, summer is coming, not winter. So.
Corn dogs.
Oh,
A lot
yes.
of applications.
All right,
I'm
let's
always
see.
eating while gaming. I don't know about you guys.
Chomp.
Dinner time is game time.
Let's see. Subscriber JBJ Blaze, who always asks questions. We love your loyalty,
love you,
man.
JB.
Asks, which is more worth the money, Stardew Valley or HTC Vive? And then also says,
Get out of here.
by the way, I just recently got delivered my first magazine of PC Gamer.
Oh,
Thanks.
nice.
So thank you for subscribing to both
Rad.
the magazine and the Twitch channel. True PC Gamer right there. I mean, $800 to $15. That's kind of hard to compare, right? The real answer
This
is
a platform.
Yeah, but can you farm carrots and like marry like the girl with the blue hair? And
that's
then-
on his. I hope that's on his list. Is VR support for Stardew Valley?
God. I mean, the Vive comes with what, like 3 free games or game experience tech demo things?
Yeah, two games and one sort of thing. It comes with the Vive comes with
Job Simulator.
Job Simulator. I always forget that one. Job Simulator.
So Stardew Valley.
Hover Junkers. No, it's not Stardew Valley. And also this thing called Tilt Brush, which is basically like a 3D drawing program.
Is that by Google? Is that the one by Google? Or no, there's an equivalent on Oculus, right?
Yes.
Something like that.
One of them is by Google. I'm not sure which. I'm sorry. I'm not that smart on VR. And then the Oculus Rift will come with Eve Valkyrie, Lucky's Tale, and then that movie thing, Henry. That's like an Oculus
Little porcupine
thing.
guy.
Yeah.
Well, Wes, our hardware editor, who of course has been on this show and podcast several times, he's over in Europe right now, hanging out with Logitech, checking out their factory or something. I don't really know. checking out gaming mice. He'll be back this Friday. Hopefully, we'll have some time to check this thing out and give us some more impressions next week, maybe.
All right. SB Droid also says Vive/Rift first-hand experience, price difference justified or not? That's unfortunately too early to tell for us because we literally just opened this in front of you, so we haven't had a chance to compare really. The thing I will say is we mentioned this on the show last week, I believe, that it's going to be interesting because the price difference might be made up pretty quickly by how much the Oculus controllers cost.
Yeah.
Because Oculus Touch, Vive comes with its touch controllers. Oculus does not. Oculus has not announced the price of its touch controllers. If its touch controllers are $200, then the Oculus and the Vive cost the same amount of money to a certain extent. So it's a little too early to tell, but the price I don't think is radically off from each other. I think $200 is a lot of money, but it's also like closer than you think.
It's worth thinking about how valuable the standing experience is to you as well, because obviously Oculus doesn't really have that at the moment.
Relatedly, there was some reports circulating around. I don't know if this is official or not. I need to dig into it more, but 15,000 of these sold in the first 15 minutes that they were available.
Yeah. I thought it was 10 minutes.
Pretty good.
Really quick.
That's pretty good. Damn.
It also makes you think about what the Oculus numbers are, because Oculus also said, wow, way more people bought them in the first hour than we were expecting, but they didn't give a hard number. So I think the thing that's clear on both sides for both platforms is that more people are buying VR early than either company expected.
which is great. Yep.
Yeah.
But rest assured, we're going to be very focused on helping you guys understand the differences between these two platforms, these two pieces of hardware, understanding what the experience is like right now to help you make a better decision about whether you want to jump in right now or not, or if you're just curious what it's like for us. We're going to be sharing that over time. So stick around.
Does anybody... Here's a question. Dark Souls 3's frame rate has come up again of people saying it might be locked to 30. I think we addressed this before, and I'll just address it really quick again. Dark Souls 2 was not locked to 30. I would be genuinely shocked if Dark Souls 3 is, but I guess don't hold me to that. That's just what we said last time and our conclusion last time. But there were a couple questions about it. Zbat asks, could you talk about Mountain Blade Bannerlord and the upcoming PC Gamer Weekender where it will be at?
Yeah. So our friends in the UK, this weekend, if you happen to be near London, traveling through London, if you have access to an interdimensional portal that brings you close to London, go to our event this weekend, PC Gamer Weekender. If you just type that in, you'll find out all the cool stuff we have going on there. But of course, Dark Souls 3 is actually playable there. So so check it out there, along with a lot of other cool exclusive stuff. A lot of developers themselves will be there. We're going to have like building workshops. I believe tickets are still on sale and they're pretty darn cheap. So yeah, and we're hoping to bring that event. I think it's safe to say we'd love to bring that to the U.S. if we can, if there's interest. So even if they're not in the UK, look forward to perhaps more events from us in the future.
Yeah, and if you are in the US and you do want to see it here, go to PCGamer.com and tell us in the comments. Let your voice heard.
We are going to be live streaming some stuff too. I'm sorry I didn't mention that. I think we're going to have some sort of speeches and channels. Mostly our UK team, who we're very cooperative with, of course. We're all one big happy family. But they're kind of running the show over there naturally because it's on their turf. So check our Twitch channel over the weekend and see what's going on.
All right, we have another question from subscriber Ian Ing asks, what is one existing game that you would want to play in VR?
Ooh, good.
That's a good question. One of mine is actually one that already has preliminary VR support, which is called Subnautica. If you don't know what Subnautica is, it's this kind of survival crafting game where you've crash landed on an alien world, but the world is almost entirely ocean. It's basically all water. So it's an underwater scuba diving crafting game and survival game, and it's in early access right now, but the developers do basically an update every month, and the updates are not insubstantial. They're really, really pushing that game. We're actually hopefully going to have a couple developer of Subnautica on the show in the coming weeks.
Yeah, they're based here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
The Unknown Worlds guys, really good group.
But that game is gorgeous. It's really, really beautiful. It was beautiful before they updated the water. They had what they called the H2.0 update, where they changed what their water looks like, basically. And it was already pretty before, and it looks even better now. So I really want to swim in that world in VR.
This is an easy question for me. MechWarrior Online, I think any cockpit game in general, I think is perfect for VR, right? Because you want that independent head movement. ARM is another game that has independent head movement, of course. It's really useful. But the difference between using the mouse to look and aim, in a game like that, and being able to do, just move your neck and aim independently, I think is massive and important. And just, it's naturally going to be more immersive when you're sitting in that environment. You're surrounded with your control panels, and you kind of represent the UI a little bit more naturally, rather than putting life bars in every corner and stuff like that. We can actually look down and hit buttons or hit certain panels and see its different statuses, lock-ons and targeting and stuff like that. Ammo. Would love to see that, with 2 joysticks or a couple of these in my hands, running around in my Atlas.
That'd be dope. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I think Dark Souls or a game like that would be really cool. Those environments, if you haven't experienced third person in VR, it's really special. It's almost like you're peering into a diorama and watching little figurines do their own thing. And
I hadn't even thought of Dark Souls. That's a really good answer.
The camera would be its own battle for sure, but I think the environments are so detailed. It like I said, it feels like a diorama. I want to peer down into that world and look at all the details and watch my character dance around in 3D, and I think it would be really, really, really sweet. So
let's take a couple more before we run out of time. Let's see. Amberground asks, what Stone Age animal would you want as your own personal pet?
Well, James ran that exact article.
Hey, what do you
actually.
know?
I mean, James, you reviewed the animals of Far Cry Primal.
Yeah, based on really professional criteria.
I mean, deep analysis.
deep analysis.
Professional, ethical gaming journalism.
It's
about the best animals from that period. And what came out on top, James?
for me, it's the saber-toothed tiger, mainly because you form a bond unlike any other in that game, and you get pretty close. I mean, you're riding on the back of a tiger everywhere you go, and you're gonna have to share some secrets and really get to know each other.
You're gonna be biting all kinds of things together.
Oh yeah.
So you might as well get really close.
Yeah, so that's my favorite.
What did you say what actually came out in the bottom of that review? The Animal Kingdom.
Badgers.
I thought there was something called like a dole or something.
Oh well, there's I don't know actually say
Honey badgers?
Dole. The badger sucks just because like their special ability is to ward off all other animals. They're just like the asshole of the game.
Nobody likes them.
You pet them and they bite your arm, and like they make weird little sniveling noises. And I mean the dole, which is spelled Dhole, and I just call the D hole, is also pretty lame, just because they're small yip dogs that are useless and no one likes them. They smell bad.
We're going to take a last couple. Gusto Punch asks, are you guys going to test Elite Dangerous on it, meaning VR? I'm curious how it works with a good flight controller. We definitely are. Yeah. We're definitely going to try it with VR, and we also have a Warthog in the other room, a HOTAS, like flight stick and throttle to test it with, and that's going to be probably the last thing I ever do, and then I can just die happy. But we'll see.
Yeah, cockpit games, I'm telling you, it's perfect. I mean, you guys remember freaking Steel Battalion on the original Xbox? Yeah. They sold like a $300 physical controller with like 100 buttons on it or something. Yeah. Like glass encased eject button or plastic encased eject button. Like, it's such a natural fit.
And then Dwight Schrute Steam says, Vive comes with fantastic contraption, not hover junkers. I misspoke. That is my fault. Yes, it comes with fantastic really contraption, cool. Which is also a cool-looking VR game. And finally, one of the last ones I want to take is Ultimate Purge asks, can you use these VR headsets with any game, or do they have to be built for it? The answer is kind of both, because they have to be built for it. They have to be in the sense that the developer needs to be supporting the headset specifically, but there's not been much like... There have been very, very few instances so far of like a Vive exclusive game or a Rift exclusive game. And Palmer Luckey has been very open the last few days talking about how he wants the Rift store to be compatible with both the Vive and the Rift. He wants that to happen. And it sounds like, and he hasn't said this really explicitly because I'm sure he doesn't want to like throw stones, but he's made it sound like it's Valve and HTC who are kind of dragging their feet on making the Rift store compatible, which is understandable given that Valve has Steam. Yeah. So Valve is less incentivized to make their stuff work because they have the most popular gaming storefront in the world. So why would they make their product available for other fronts?
It's so important that developers have that kind of ease of access to both platforms. Yeah. I mean, just like if you're a mobile game developer right now, you want to be able to easily publish on Android and Apple. I mean, they're roughly equivalent platforms. It's like 60-40 or something worldwide. So, yeah, I mean, especially at this early period where there's, yes, like tens of thousands of these things out in the wild, but it's still like a very small customer base. You want to be able to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think that'll hopefully go the right way, but we'll see. We'll see. And Tyler Wilde also points out that you can poke VR support into games or it's not dev supported, and there's kind of a modding community starting to do that. So I'm sure that you'll be able to play VR into games that you want to try eventually. But yeah, that's about all the time that we have for today. Thank you very much on this very weird and improvisational PC Gamer show. I hope it was at all amusing for you guys listening at home. Once again, this has been the PC Gamer show. You can always join us next Tuesday at twitch.tv/PCGamer. Man, you guys are distracting me so hard. Twitch.tv/PCGamer, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And please give us a follow, or if you really like the show, subscribe on Twitch. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching there. Give us a good review on iTunes if you're listening there, or just leave us a comment at pcgamer.com/podcast and click today's show. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.